Tariq Ramadan is a scholar and a philosopher of Islam in a world in which the Muslim experience is more varied than ever. He has tried to show what faith means in the modern age. His writings have helped forge an Islamic identity outside the Muslim-majority countries. His latest book is called Islam and the Arab Awakening. It asks the question, what will Islamic democracy look like? Ramadan calls for a return to traditional Islamic values seen through critical eyes. I am pleased to have him back on this program. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for
Why do you use the term Arab Awakening rather than, say, Arab Spring?
That's a very important question because from the very beginning, I didn't buy the fact that we were witnessing a spring and even revolutions. From the very beginning, I said I'm cautiously optimistic about what is happening,
right,
saying that, yes, there is something which is irreversible, that the people in Egypt, Tunisia to start with, and then other countries are now aware that it's possible to get rid of dictatorships and that they can change. This is something which is happening now. In political terms and as to the future, we still have a lot to see and to do over there to get something which has to do with the democratization process.
You believe that in fact what has to happen is that Middle East has to produce new models of democracy.
Yes, I think when it comes to the principles, all this discussion about is Islam compatible with democracy,
right.
That's this question. We have to stop with this. I think that nothing in the democratic principles are against the Islamic principles. We don't have a problem with the principles.
Why do people make that argument, though?
Because
they think that religion will dominate the powers of a state rather than democratic values.
Yes, I think for many reasons. First is the historical reasons, is that when you look at what is happening in the Middle East to reduce the Islamic world, so to speak, I speak about Muslim-majority countries, to the Arab world. If you look at the Arab world, no real democracies over there. So we think it has to do with religion. It has nothing to do with religion first, because the Arab world is not is not Islam. It's not the great majority of the Muslims are not Arabs. So this is why we think that Islam has nothing to do with democracy. The second thing which is important is that the perception that Islam is alien to all the Western values and that Islam has no take on all these principles. I think that this is why Muslim scholars from within, they should say, rule of law, equal citizenship, universal suffrage, accountability, separation of power. These principles are not against the Islamic frame of reference.
But are they principles that, where there are Islamic majorities in government, that those Islamic majorities want to either create or to put in the process?
I think, yes, what we saw, whatever was, whatever were the reasons of, this uprisings in what the people were asking for, more dignity, freedom, and liberty. They wanted dignity and they wanted freedom. They wanted democratization. Now, the models are historical. Even if you look at what is happening in the United States, the democratic model in the United States has nothing to do with the Swiss model. I'm a Swiss citizen. So we have models that are coming out of our history, our collective psychology. This has nothing to do with, we have same principles, different models. Let's see if it's possible in Muslim-majority countries, in Tunisia or in Egypt. Let's see if it's possible to have models of democracy that are not against the Islamic principles, but at the same time, very, very clear on the dignity of the people.
What part of Islamic principles might be considered against democracy and democratic principles? What part?
Yeah, I think this discussion about the fact that Muslims or the Islamic reference does not differentiate between politics and religion, that Islam, and this was also the rhetoric of some, Islamists at the beginning of the 20th century is saying Islam is religion and power and state. And we had the secularization process. Democracies came to be a reality in the West out of this secularization process. It's as if the Muslims, they don't they haven't experienced this. And more than that, we had actors within the Muslim majority countries saying, no, for us it's the same. And this is where we have to be quite clear that from an Islamic viewpoint, the fact that there is a negotiated authority coming from the state, and we don't want the authority of religion to take over, this is a principle which is not against Islam. And we need to understand, and this is what I'm saying in the book, the point is that all these debates that we have today between secularists and Islamists are not the true questions. The true questions today is, if we want democratization, we need to tackle 5 issues. The first one is corruption, because the society are corrupt. The second is education. There is no democracy without people being educated, and education is the starting point of having citizens who are responsible. And the third one is the economic system. What is happening now? Why I'm talking to you now in the Middle East is unsettled societies and economic systems that are completely destroyed. Without economic stability and a vision about social justice, which is the third challenge, and also the reality of empowerment for women, because this is a problem. Very often we speak about what is happening in the Middle East.
Well, there's a question. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, speak to that, to empowerment of women, and what some people believe that certain Muslim states look at the role of women in the society. Saudi Arabia.
Yes, exactly. And this is why we have to be critical. When you have a state where, for example, it is said it's impossible for a woman to drive, where the access to education...
Based on Islamic perceptions of Islamic principles.
Exactly, an interpretation which is a narrow, literalist, for me, unacceptable interpretation of Islam. Nothing in Islam can support this position. So this is why we need to say, look, instead of having people from the West saying, you know what, there is a danger in the Muslim majority societies because women are now wearing headscarf more than yesterday. That's not the point. Liberation for women has nothing to do with the way you dress. It has to do with 2 things. The first, access to education, and second, access to the job market. If you can get a job, and with the job having the same salary from the same skills, because we still in the United States of America are dealing with this issue, that sometimes a woman gets the same job with the same skills but less salary.
Okay, you've said that Tunisia, the Tunisian model is the only true democracy coming out of the Arab Spring or Arab Awakening, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Assess what's happened in Egypt since the election of President Morsi.
No,
what's happened?
No, I think that this is where I was cautiously optimistic by saying, look, the forces now still, I'm not at all optimistic, even, by the way, even with what is happening now in Tunisia. Because what we have is that we had something quite interesting in Tunisia with the president, Monsef Marzouki, and some secularists saying, the future is to acknowledge the fact that, like it or not, the Islamists have a say in the future of our country. Let us come together and try to tackle the main issues. Up to now, they were not able to find an agreement, not because of them, because sometimes what we have is other trends, very, very narrow secularist trends that are saying, if you refer to religion, you are backward. At the same time, we also have Salafist. And there is something which is happening in the Muslim majority countries now, is a new type of Salafi. Yesterday, they were not involved in politics.
I want to talk about that, so since you're there, explain to me and to my audience what Salafists are and how they're different from other Islamist.
Yes, Salafi is a loaded term. At the beginning, in the Islamic tradition, Salafi means to come back to the first 3 generations of Muslims. It was a positive concept, saying we come back, some were saying, to the literalist understanding and others to the creativity of the origin. Today, we have many types of Salafi. We have literalists. You were talking before about Saudi Arabia. They don't call themselves Wahhabi. They call themselves Salafi. It's literalists. So they come to the text and they want to implement the text.
But Wahhabi and Salafist are not the same.
No, in fact, the Wahhabi that we are talking about are Salafi, in fact.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So the point is that they are literalists.
They are the same, but it's a question of definition of...
Exactly, the term that we are using. And the second thing is that what we had over the last 15 years is a new type of Salafi. Remember in Egypt, they were saying, we are not involved in politics. Few months before the election, they started changing the Salafi, saying we can be involved. So now we have a type of Salafi involved in politics. And they are literalists. Hizb Noor, the party of light, as they call themselves, are now being involved. And we think it's the same. The Muslim Brotherhood or Nahda in Tunisia are the same as the Salafi. They are not.
Tell me what Salafists in Egypt want, because they did okay at the election.
Yes, they did 23%.
20,
exactly.
Right.
Yes. So what they want is two things. First, the constitution, the only reference should be to a Sharia. So
Sharia law.
Exactly, Sharia law. This is, and second, an Islamic state was something which is based only on Islam, which is the exclusive.
Okay. Do you agree
reference.
with that, and do you find fault with that?
I think it's completely wrong. This is a perception and a reading of Islam, which is a narrow one, literalist, and I think that they are using the democratic system to come to say to all the people, we are the only true Islamic reference. And this is a literalist trend, and this is why I'm saying to the Muslim conscience today, if we don't tackle this issue, if we are not clear about the fact that the literalist reading of our scriptural sources is wrong, that we need a new type of understanding of the text, clear as to the principles of our text. We are faithful to the text, but open and critical and understanding the challenges of our time. One of the challenges is women, as we said, is the job market.
Right. But some have argued this debate. There are many people who've argued, even during the midst of the Iraqi war and all the things that have transpired after that took place, and have argued that the debate, and even before the Iraqi war, there's something that had nothing to do with the Iraqi war, what happened in 9/11, that the debate ought to be within Islam, that's where the debate ought to be between Salafists and a point of view that you're recommending, and that debate has never really taken place.
I think it's true. We need an internal debate among scholars. You know, when I was talking about, for example, implementing the penal code, I was saying to the Muslims, stop. We now have to stop implementing and open an internal debate among scholars, among politicals and intellectuals. But at the end of the day, every civilization, every society needs an internal debate. If you are Democrats in the United States, we better open a debate about democracy in this society when it comes to the African American, when it comes to the people, the Latinos, every society. So the Muslims are not alien, or they are not an exception. You could argue that
in America you just saw the power of the Latino vote.
That's fine, and I think I'm not saying that
demographic change is reflected, in a sense of where they have so fully participated that they have power.
They have power, but not always the same rights. So the debate is still open. And in the Muslim majority countries, as you said, and I think this is very important, we need this debate. We need an internal debate. And I'm saying, and this is from where I am, I wrote a book a few years ago saying, you know what, the experience of the Western Muslims will have a tremendous impact on the Muslim majority countries. Why? Because I can talk. Because I can talk with you. Because I have this critical debate, and I can come and say, look, what we are experiencing in the West are at the forefront of new challenges. When I'm talking today, for example, about an Islamic applied ethics, when it comes to politics, to economy, to environment, these debates now coming from the West, when I go back to Muslim majority countries, I'm heard. I'm heard. Why? Because I'm trying
in Egypt, you can speak your mind and have a debate with...
Not yet. I didn't go yet. I will go because I was banned from the country for 60 years. I was banned from Tunisia. In Tunisia I went. And I was in the middle.
You're still banned from... They haven't
so far I don't have a clear answer coming from... That's the point, because my record was with the army, and what I said in this book.
Wait, I don't understand this. Why don't the Egyptians now, in which the Muslim Brotherhood is in charge of the government, why don't they let you in?
No, they don't. They say, from the beginning, even under Mubarak, they were saying you can't come in. My problem is not with the civil state and the president or the new president. It's with the army. And as you know, up to now, the army is still very powerful in Egypt. I wrote it in the book saying, be careful. All what is said is that it might be that what we are experiencing now, it's a new positioning of the Egyptian army within a civil state after Mubarak. And I'm still waiting to see how it is going to be in the near future.
Would you like to see happen in Egypt what happened in Turkey with respect to the army?
Of course.
The idea of putting them back in the barracks.
Exactly. I think that this is the only way, and this is why, for example, Erdogan and his current administration, they were quite smart with the European Union to push through the European Union the army by saying, we are not going to be true democracy if you still have this power within the country.